And
look what I brought today.
Why would you choose anything without jam?
Same.
Ready? Okay. Hello and welcome to Uphill From Here.
This is Catherine.
And this is Amy. And we're back for episode 22.
3?
No!
It's 23.
Oh, crikey.
That's how old I am now. So how was your week?
My week's fine.
Yeah.
These eye bags are designer.
Thank God it's a podcast.
Yeah.
People can see.
Woo! It has been a long week. And we're only at Wednesday.
Yeah, great. I quit my job and now I'm just living my best life doing stuff.
I love that for you. I actually really do love that for you.
I love that for me until I have to pay rent.
Yeah.
I'd rather be broke and happy than miserable and rich.
Fair play.
This is a long intro.
It is.
Should we?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's your letter first this week.
We haven't even spoken about what the topic is.
Yeah, Catherine, tell our lovely listeners what the word of the week is this week.
The word of the week this week is change. Changer, if you will.
We've all gone through big life changes. Life's changing right now. Change. All about change. Social change. Personal change.
Political change.
Change.
Like changes.
Damn it, I was going to sing that.
My letter first, did you say?
Yes, please.
That's you reading.
That is me reading. So Catherine's written, Dear past me, you deal with change now much better than you ever have. Change used to be something that struck you with fear every time you thought about things changing and life never being the same again. Nostalgia is a funny thing. You always want things to go back to the way things were. You miss the way certain things used to be, but things have to change to keep you moving forward. Change brings about new hobbies, new jobs, new excitement. My advice to anyone who's struggling with change, look for the new excitement in the change. Look for the small things that you love about the change. Love your future self. Obviously you talk to your former self from now you say that you handle change a lot better.
Yes.
How did you used to handle change? What was it that struck you with fear so much about change?
I didn't used to handle change. It was the unknown. It's the unknown about change that I hate. And before going to uni, I was really quite poorly with the idea of things changing, things being different. And I struggle with I get this sort of sadness when things aren't the same anymore. So, one of the best examples I can give is that I used to absolutely love Christmas. And not even just things like Christmas, but I used to get really excited about small things like hanging out with my friends, if we were going to go and do something, or I'd get dead super excited about stuff. And now I don't have that feeling anymore because I've grown up. And that makes me quite sad that I don't get to that level of excitement anymore because I'm older and, I don't process excitement in the same way. I can still look forward to something, but it's not that and being waiting for it for weeks and weeks on end and counting down the days. I don't have that anymore. And that kind of makes me quite sad and quite nostalgic that I don't feel that way anymore. But in terms of big life change, it's the unknown that really strikes fear into me.
Yeah.
A lot of anxiety around the unknown and the uncertainty of things. I'm never certain that something's going to work out or that something's going to be for me. So that's always...
Well, you can never be sure. You kind of just we kind of spoke about in our Comfort Zone podcast, if anyone wants to listen back. we talked about that, like stepping out your comfort zone into that unknown can be scary, but what's on the other side is always like, it's always going to move you forward. That's the idea you talk about in your letters, moving you forward. And if taking that step, you create like a new comfort zone, and you have to find a way to think like, well, what have I still got that's comfortable to me? I know you said that fear for you came from what you didn't have anymore and what you lost. And it's when you shift the focus onto, well, what have I gained by this change? What do I have now instead of the thing that I don't have anymore? That's when you find change a bit more exciting, when you think that way. Because you talked about feeling anxious about change, and I'm sure a lot of people are anxious about change and the uncertainty of our future, like ahead. But it's like you say, it's in finding the little things, like what we said before, like what can I control? What is a good thing about this change? And like just analyze that thought and think about, what am I actually afraid of? And like, what are all of the outcomes, not just the bad ones? What are the good outcomes too?
Absolutely.
Forward. What's one change in your life that you think maybe when you thought about it, you were really scared, but the change actually brought about something really positive into your life?
Uni.
Yeah?
Yeah. I was, and I mean, like, I'm not going to delve into my personal kind of mental health, but I was terrified prior to uni. And I was really, really frightened. But without going to uni and without meeting the people that I've met and without knowing what I know now, I wouldn't be the person that I am. And a lot of things changed and happened through uni that have also shaped who I am. But it was the going to uni step that helped me make all those changes. And definitely, like, it's such a huge step. It's the first time you move away from home. It's making loads of new friends. It's becoming a professional in your field. It's just so many things. It's moving house several times. It's being away from home for extended periods of time. It's learning to cook for yourself, learning how to take care of yourself and listen to what you need, which I didn't do for the first year and I regretted it. Without all of that and without all of that learning, I wouldn't be the person that I am now. And that was definitely a change that really, really frightened me, because I didn't think I was going to cope with it. I thought I was going to do 2 weeks and come home, because I just didn't think I'd be able to deal with being away from home, being by myself. And then I made really great friends and ended up being like, oh, actually, I really don't want to leave at all.
By Christmas, you just be like, oh, I'm going to miss everyone. Like, this is my life.
Yeah.
You miss everyone.
Yeah, and then you go home for Christmas and you're excited because it's Christmas, and you know, it's like you do all special things for Christmas with family, but then you hit the week between Christmas and New Year and all you're doing is going, I want to go back. I really want to go back. Let me go back now, please. Because you get used to life by yourself. And I think that definitely, because without moving to uni and without going to uni, I wouldn't have moved to as many cities as I moved to. I wouldn't be so open with just going, yeah, that's fine, I'll just relocate for this job that I'm doing. You know, I wouldn't have, for instance, if I hadn't gone to uni in Liverpool, I wouldn't have taken this job and now be in South Yorkshire. And whenever I say to people when they're like, oh, so where are you now? Like, are you still in Liverpool or have you gone back home? And I'm like, no, I'm in South Yorkshire. And they're like, why? And I'm like, why not? And it made me so much more of kind of like, so much more spontaneous. Even though I'm not a very spontaneous person, it did make me so much more spontaneous. And when people question it, I'm like, well, what's the logic to staying exactly where I am? You know, what's the logic in, you know, do I have any reason holding me back from moving anywhere? No. Then what is the logic in staying where I am if I can go and experience different things and meet new people?
Exactly. Yeah. Like you say, change is scary. Like going to uni, like everything changes. Your routine, the kind of learning you're doing, your structure, your friends, you're away from family, your living environment, your responsibilities, everything, your financial situation, everything that you can think of changes. But like at the end of it, the only person you have is yourself. So I feel like that kind of big change forces you to look at yourself. And we both grew up at uni. I became a very different person in all the first, second and third year, I think. Very different person. Yeah,
very different people.
I think by making that change, like you say, like you're moving yourself forward, you're not always doing the same thing, and you're growing and you're bettering yourself. And like, look what came of it. Like if we hadn't gone to the same uni,
this would never have happened.
The podcast wouldn't be a thing. So step into that fear of that change. Step into it and just settle into that change. Don't run home at the first sign of discomfort with it and experience it and just grow with it, I think. Don't run from change.
Shall we do your letter? Okay. Amy has said, to anyone who is scared of change, it is okay to fear change or the unknown of what lies ahead. Change is, for the most part, a good thing. It moves us forward. It allows us to find out new things about ourselves, the world and the people around us. It allows us to better ourselves, to grow, to evolve. We as a species are alive today because of change. We need to change to survive, to adapt, to become the best possible versions of ourselves. In the past 2,000 years, so much has changed. Land structures, our diets, language, fashion, technology, social constructs. Unfortunately, some change takes time, and for some, progress can be slower than hoped. We as a society still need social change and reformation. We need equality for women, Black, Indigenous, LGBT, and other marginalised factions of our society. An evolution of our attitudes, laws, education, and business practice. Change must come, but it can't happen on its own, and it won't happen all at once. We must enact change, making sure that the world we pass on to our children is a safer, fairer, and more accepting world than when we found it. You can be the change. What mark are you going to make? Amy, a future ancestor. I love that.
I saw that written somewhere, like, we are somebody's ancestors.
Yeah.
Like, what we're doing now, what we're passing down, the mark we're leaving on the world. One day our great-great-great-grandkids might do a project on in school. It's like, you're someone's ancestor, like, you're someone's heritage, so what are you leaving behind for them?
Yeah, absolutely. The first question I want to ask is, where did this come from? What place did this come from?
So we wrote this letter a few weeks ago now, when everything that was happening with Sarah Everard in London and kind of this social movement against violence for women, the now new law that's been brought in against protest, all the issues that have been happening over the last year with the Black Lives Matter movement, the kind of like anti-Asian hate movement, anti-Semitism, like, there's been so much social change and so many social movements happening from like our own homes that it kind of came home that, like, you don't necessarily have to be at the forefront of a protest or be like throwing bricks at a prime minister or chaining yourself to fences to make social change. Like, we can all do something for ourselves, even if it is from home. And I think when I wrote it, I was scared, I was angry about what happened to Sarah and about the response from certain males online. And it's like, this can't keep happening. This shouldn't be normal for women to fear for their lives walking home. No. We shouldn't have to learn self-defense and learn to carry keys and text our friends. It's like, change needs to happen. Like, this needs to change, because I don't want my kids growing up in a world where my daughters are scared to walk home alone and that their lives are at risk and I have to fear for their lives purely because of their gender. I need to be part of that change for my future generations. Do you know what I mean? For my kids and their kids. I just can't stand by and let it stay the same.
Yeah, definitely. And that is, again, that kind of positive change. And I don't think it matters kind of your standpoint on it or any kind of points that people can make about it, because I do think that everybody's got their opinion on all these matters, and not everybody's opinions directly match up. You know, we all have similar morals and we all want a similar outcome, but we also have different thoughts about
different experiences,
what's happening, different experiences, and all these kinds of things, which are all equally as important. And everyone needs to be involved in that conversation. And like you say, that change and that, that outcome that everybody wants will not happen unless anybody actually takes action or talks about it, and kind of raises it as a problem. So like you say, we have to be the advocate for change, because it's a human problem. It's not an earth problem. It's not a nature problem. It's a human problem.
Yeah, we've created.
And if you've created the problem, then you need to create and find the solution.
Exactly.
And be the change for that.
Exactly. Like, humans created racism, sexism, the ageism. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've created social constructs that have like slowly poisoned the society we live in.
Yeah.
And we're the only ones that can change that. But I think in terms of what was happening in the conversation with violence against women, what I kind of advocated for online and what I continue to advocate for on this platform as well is the fact that like both parties need to be involved. All parties need to be involved in this conversation. Feminism isn't just for women.
No.
It's just a conversation we should have, because if only one side of the argument's getting involved, we're not going to progress and make change. So I was really pushing to invite men to join that conversation.
Absolutely.
And to see what part they can play in progressing and hopefully improving the lives of future generations and current generations of women growing up. To just a safer world. Like, we all need to be part of that, not just women supporting women. It should just be people supporting people, like regardless of gender or race. Exactly. Exactly.
And I think as well, kind of with when it comes to kind of social change, we have to remember, unfortunately, the God honest truth, that we can't eradicate all danger from the world. Just because they were a man doesn't mean that they're a murderer. Like that, and I think that was sometimes, I think that was sometimes kind of the way that it was being pushed online, is that like, because he's a man. No, it's not because he's a man. He's a horrible person. Horrible person. And I think we have to remember that unfortunately we can't get rid of horrible people out of this world. And people that commit crime, it's happened forever, and it will always happen. Because unfortunately, the human race is not always kind to one another.
If you look at the stats, like, men make up a way disproportionate amount of murderers, rapists, abusers, and violent crimes. And you look at the statistics that came out, like 97% of women have been sexually assaulted or harassed. And you think there's some kind of disbalance here. And while we can't change the kind of evils that live in the world, in men and women, there's female murderers too. What we can change is the little things, our attitudes, the male attitude towards women, so that we're not breeding this kind of society that thinks it's okay to degrade women and sexualize women for what she's wearing, that deems her life less valuable, and her more vulnerable when she's walking home alone.
Absolutely.
So those attitudes need to change. And I think that's in the small things. That's in calling out someone who's catcalling, calling out a mate who's just grabbed a girl's arse in a club because he thought it was funny. It's not funny, it's sexual assault.
It is.
And we need male allies to call that behaviour out.
Absolutely.
So that they have other male role models to go actually make them question their past behaviours and their past attitudes. And that only happens if we have the conversation and we try and make those small changes.
Something that we've probably all experienced as women is when you have a man with you, regardless of what relation they are to you, you'll probably be left alone. And kind of, if somebody were to see that and, you know, see that shift, being like calling somebody out on that, like, okay, why are you talking respectfully to her now that I'm here? But beforehand you weren't. What makes the difference? And they like you say, they are all the small behaviors and attitudes that we need to be calling out, because why do I deserve any more respect when I've got a man standing next to me?
And it's the same thing when you see people saying, like, trying to gain sympathy for this situation and trying to gain male empathy by saying, well, she had a son, she's someone's mother, she's someone's daughter, she's got a dad, she's someone's sister, she has a brother, she's got male friends, she's someone's girlfriend or wife, whatever. Cut that bullshit. She's just someone. She's a person.
She is someone.
The value of her life isn't validated more by having a man in it. I just things need to change.
They do need to change. Absolutely.
We all need to be a part of that. So we'll pop some resources down in the
definitely
in the YouTube bio, if anyone wants to get involved in that conversation, learn more, or has just been kind of impacted by what we've said there. So
we are here for support. If anybody wants to just send a message, you know, if you're thinking, oh, I don't know how I feel about this and I just want to talk about it, that's absolutely fine. We're open to have those kinds of conversations. We love those kinds of conversations. You know, they're the ones that are important. So please feel free to use any of the resources or just have a little chat to us if you feel like you need to.
Change starts from small actions, and one of those might be voicing your opinion, sharing it with us, continuing this conversation so that change slowly starts to happen. It's okay to change your mind, your attitude, learn from past behaviours. yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts and your experiences, so feel free to get in touch. That segues nicely. We're going to hear from two lovely women who are our guests this week.
They are.
Hear their experiences. Catherine, who are our guests this week?
This week's guests are the 20-something on Instagram, and they're an online community for 20-somethings to kind of get inspired and get together and have conversations about the things that are important and the things that need to be talked about by people in their 20s. So first we're going to be hearing from Sarah from the 20-something, and then afterwards we're going to be hearing from Bethan, and then we're going to have like a little chat about both letters.
Dear Kat and Amy, my name is Sarah Worth. I'm 24 years old and I run the Instagram account at 20something _ with my lovely best friend Bethan. When I was younger and I thought of change, I used to think of losing something, being nervous of the unknown and all that scary stuff. Now, when I think of change, I think of adaptation, new opportunities, and of course, still some nerves. I don't think we would be human if we didn't get nervous when things change. When I was younger, my family and I moved around a lot. I was born in Wales, and then I moved to Mallorca for 8 years before moving to Cornwall. And then I moved to Cheltenham for university, and now my family are back in Wales, so we've come completely full circle. Every time my family and I moved somewhere new, I would think about all the things I was losing, when actually what I should have been thinking about was all the new opportunities that I was gaining. When we moved to the UK, I was worried about losing touch with my friends from Mallorca, but I can honestly say that 11 years on, we're still friends and we're closer than ever. On top of this, I now have an amazing bunch of friends in Cornwall and back in Wales too, which if I never left Spain, I would have never have met. And now I can't imagine my life without these people. I think this goes back to the word change as a whole. Just because some aspects of your life are changing doesn't mean you're losing something. It means you're adding something to what you already had before. Adaptation is another thing I wish I could talk to my younger self about. I'm 24 years old now, and when I left university, leaving the comfort of education was so scary. I had no idea what I wanted to do and was scared of the change. What I am most proud of now, with hindsight, is how I adapted from student life to working life and where I am now. After being so worried about where I would be and where I would end up, I have now reached a milestone and worked 2 years at a digital marketing agency in Bristol. I feel like I have rambled a lot, but I really hope what I'm saying is translating through my writing. In summary, change can be a challenge for everyone, but just because it is a challenge doesn't mean it has to be bad. Some of the best opportunities in life show up when we are open to change. And if you feel like the opportunity isn't for you, you still haven't lost anything. You've just learned something about yourself and what you are passionate about and not passionate about, which will ultimately help you in the future. I think my last piece of advice would be to embrace everything that comes your way. Since the pandemic, I have learned about this even more than I probably ever have before. I cannot wait to embrace all the change that comes my way and to embrace every opportunity thrown at me, whether that be professionally or personally. By that, I just mean like going for lunch with a friend, a promotion, moving somewhere, literally anything. I can't wait to have those opportunities and to embrace the change. I hope this letter has made sense and will help someone in the future. All my love, Sarah Worth.
I like that her kind of, it's nice to know that other people feel the same about change, that kind of like really nervous, really uncertain, but then having that moment of kind of realization that actually a lot of this is, although it's scary and frightening, it's also a way of moving forward and of learning and of becoming who you are. I think that's really nice to know that other people feel that way as well.
And I think what a lovely way. I think a lot of people associate change with loss, like we talked about with your letter, like losing things not being the same. And should actually, when things change, like not every aspect of your life changes. Like you still have your friends, they just maybe don't live in the same city or go to the same uni. And I think what she said about just adding things, like this little like collection of your life, like adding people, it's just really lovely. Like what value is the change going to add? What am I going to gain?
Yeah. I also really like this idea of adaptation as well, that we adapt. We don't change, we adapt.
Yeah.
We become more resilient. Well, last week's episode. We become more educated, we learn more, and we adapt as we go. You know, like when you think about jobs and stuff, it's like I'm changing jobs. It's like, no, you're adapting what you know from this job into a new job.
I think what she touched on about like going from being in uni to being a graduate, which we've recently experienced and we talk about quite a lot on the podcast. it's sometimes difficult to navigate. But when you think about that, you're just adapting what you've got. So you're adapting the skills, you're adapting the structure, you're adapting maybe your social skills and what you've learned from that and the people that you've met and the classes you've taken. You're just adapting all the skills you've gained there, and then applying that in the real world. And that's sometimes quite scary. But again, it's focusing, what do I have? What have I got control over? What am I bringing to this adult life? Like, what have I got to offer? And what have I got to gain? And there's so much. You shouldn't fear that. It's such an exciting time of your life. Just
definitely.
Yeah, soak it all up.
Next one.
Yeah, let's listen to Bethan's.
Dear Kat and Amy, when I think of change and what it means to me, it's something which at first initially makes me feel quite daunting. But as I've come to learn from growing up and getting deeper into my 20s, change is something that is actually really beneficial and that I think everyone should open their arms to and welcome, because you never know where it's going to take you. Not only does change provide new opportunities, which you may have missed elsewhere, it also pushes you out of your comfort zone. And 9 times out of 10, it will lead to a whole new level of fun, adaptability, and might even be the nudge in the direction that you needed, whether you realised it at the time or not. And speaking from my own experiences with change, I've made some of the best decisions and potentially some of the biggest decisions of my life just through accepting change. If it wasn't for change, I wouldn't be who I am or where I am today. I wouldn't know half of my best friends. I wouldn't have swapped the countryside for the city, then leading to job opportunities and friendships and relationships there. I wouldn't have visited half the places or experienced half the cultures that I have. And not to mention all the other little bits and bobs that you learn and I've learned along the way, all thanks to change. Even though change might not always seem to happen in the big, positive, life-changing realization moments that happen in films and books, in my opinion, it should always be embraced, as it will always provide a lesson, which will normally always be positive, and it will also usually kind of lead to a new chapter of your life, which you would be silly not to make the most of. Because even though at first change might feel like it's a big dramatic thing, it will always lead you somewhere. I completely believe that with change, it always provides you with new opportunities, and things wouldn't happen if they weren't meant to. So even if it seems like a bad change at first, it will then form your life going forwards to something that may have changed for the good.
It's just, I love hearing other people's letters because it just makes me feel really like positive. I feel like I've always loved other people's perspectives on things, so it's always made me kind of feel, I don't know, it gives me like a little bit of warmth.
And I think everyone, like, we've all got the same kind of like, we've had very obviously different experiences for different women, but we've all started our letter by saying change is something that we usually are a little bit scared of, or a little bit unsure and uncertain. It can be daunting, but we've all kind of faced that and come out the other side being like, actually, some of the best things in my life, the best person that I've ever been has been because of change. Like, I am who I am today and where I am today because I've just accepted and gone with that change, even if it scared me.
Yeah, definitely. I really like this idea of her kind of mentioning that change in real life is not like the big, you know, kind of epiphany moment like in films where you go, oh, I know exactly what I need to do now to make my life better. And it's not like Sandy in Greece where you need to, you know, change your whole persona. But great outfit, but awful message. That, you know, actually it comes in the small changes in the day to day, you know, the where you decide to, like she says, change the countryside for the city, and it's like, oh well, that's just an organic choice of like, oh well, I'm off to uni, or oh, I need a job, and it's just something that comes with day to day living that actually is a huge change in life, really, in the grand scheme of things, that actually makes everything so much different and gives a whole different perspective, even though, you know, initially it was just, oh, well, I'm just moving because I need a job. But really, it can teach you so many life lessons from that one small change. And I really like that she kind of brought in that it's not all these huge epiphanies in life that, you know, grand power ballad music behind it that's like, now I know what I need to do. It's like, no, I don't know what I need to do, but I'm going to make this small change and hope it points me in the right direction.
Exactly. And like she says, like what's meant for you, like it is meant for you, and that change will happen. And I think what she said about change normally is a good thing, but sometimes change can bring about bad things, and you have to kind of lean into that and accept that sometimes like I just changed jobs and I started a new job 3 weeks ago that is a big change for me, a change away from the industry I'm used to and that I'm good at and I love, and actually that change was overwhelming and daunting and I hated it and I quit, and I realized, but in that, although it was overwhelming and made me feel a bit crap for a while, that huge life change, I learned a lot about myself. I learned to be more patient, more resilient. I learned what I definitely don't want out of a job and the environment I don't want to be in. So in a way, when you're evaluating changes in your life, like, don't always think that that was a bad change and this is only negative. Flip it round and be like, what did I gain from that? Even if it was just experience that I don't want to ever do that again. You still gained that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think as long as you're moving forward, then you're going in the right direction, you know?
Let the fear push you through. Because it will. You'll go through the fear.
Yep.
Let it push you out the other side, because the other side is always going to be so much better.
Yeah. You'll be a better person for it. So yeah, I hope you feel like a better person after listening to this week's episode. Thank you so much to our 2 lovely guests this week.
Lovely guests, yes.
We love hearing from you and hearing about your opinions and experiences on these topics. If you would like to be a future guest or get involved, Catherine, how can they do that?
You can do that via our email, which is uphillfromherepodcast@gmail.com, or you can do it via our Instagram. Please just drop us a personal message. We are at Uphill From Here Podcast. We love to hear from you guys. And even if you just want to send us some feedback or have a chat or whatever, we just like to hear from you. It's always lovely.
I hope you enjoyed at home. If you're listening or watching, feel free to drop us a message or a comment if you enjoyed. We love you very much. We'll see you very soon. Bye!
And change has to happen. Like, change has to happen.
Yeah.
You know, we when we think about change, we think about like massive change, but sometimes it's like, for instance, you go to like Asda and the sort of beans that you wanted aren't in there. You have to change your option if you want beans. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you want to make your tea and you're having jacket potato with cheese and beans, it's like, well, do I actually want to enjoy my tea, or do I want to not get the beans because they're not the beans that I want, and then just have boring tea that's just cheese? Not that cheese is boring at all. I'm not saying that. Cheese is great, but cheese and beans is better.
I love that analogy. It could be a good podcast.
I don't know where that came
I love it. So yeah, don't be afraid to change your preferred brand of beans. Is there that kind of bean? Have we gone massively off topic?
Yes.